Well, here we are then. That is our Conor at Leopardstown, ahead of his gallop. He's got to work with a couple of stablemates. Willie Mullins has got some horses to work as well. Hidden Cyclone, we're hearing, could be schooling over fences as well. So plenty to see of late.
You can see just to the left of Danny Mullins there. They've obviously drafted him in to ride the lead horse for our Conor. That's very nice of him to turn up.
Because he wasn't riding today, was he? Banned, I think.
Banned today.
Yeah. So our Conor's got to work.
There's Davy Russell. What it looks like.
And you wouldn't be expecting anything to do, anything too testing in this ground so close.
Last year, I remember I was walking in here as well, and everybody was expecting to see this mad gallop, which was going to reveal all, and basically all it did was hacked. So really, it is, you know, if your horse is not fit at this stage, you're in trouble. It's basically just an exercise to get their blood up, you know, without actually doing too much with them. Because that's the one thing you don't want to do. A sparkling gallop today could actually ruin the chances of you winning your big target at the festival.
And he looks particularly well, doesn't he, our Conor?
He looks fantastic. I think Desi Hughes must be pleased as punch with his team, because this horse really catches the eye.
And I'm a big Hurricane Fly fan, but here we are, there's a couple of horses actually schooling at the moment. Davy Russell on the left-hand side as we look. I'm not quite sure what they are at the moment. We've got people on the ground, they're trying to find out what we are watching.
One of Charles Burns's, I would think, because I can't think of anybody else who Davy Russell rides for an awful lot. He you know, he has been going, I think, riding out for Henry de Bromhead a little bit of late as well. But he rides an awful lot for an awful lot of people, Davy Russell. So he'd always be keen to ride one if somebody's got something working there.
Trifolium, maybe?
I suppose it could be.
Or maybe it's a bit too high profile. But they're over the far side of the track there. But just got to say, Mick, I'm a huge fan of Hurricane Fly. I've been all the way through since he beat Go Native back in about 2010 or so. But the champion hurdle just looks so strong. I think it's just got to be a race to savour rather than sort of following him.
Yeah,
with
definitely.
The
I think
pounds.
if you're sitting on a voucher, if somebody's backed something for the race, they'll be obviously have a really keen interest. And if you really fancy one at a price, I think you will end up getting a price about, you know, the likes of Hurricane Fly, because there'll be so much money for all the others in the race. I really think you could end up with co-favourites, 2 or 3 of them.
I think, well, if there's any horse that's going to drift, it probably would be Hurricane Fly.
Yeah.
There'll be enough people who'll be out to get him and thinking the younger crowd are coming through.
Yeah, I don't know what these two are schooling, but, you know, they're not really that... They're not foot perfect anyway.
But you'd hope it's not Trifolium.
Well, you know, it is only a schooling session, but at the same time... That's a bit better. That'll be a lot better. You'd be a bit happier with those 2 jumps than you would the previous 2, and you can see the horse in front is just getting a little bit of a move on.
So we've got 2 more coming out, and the white breeches, white hat is Hidden Cyclone of Shark Hanlon's coming out over on the right-hand side at the moment. And it not definitely he's actually got to go to the festival, is it, Mickey? I think plans are still up in the air a little.
With Hidden Cyclone?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, he could be a horse that might be better off missing Cheltenham and then maybe go for Aintree. Aintree could quite suit him. But he's a horse that's got some form that ties in quite well with a few of the leading contenders, because, you know, if you look, he ran really well at Leopardstown behind Beneficent. He also ran really well when he got kicked out of the way by Sire de Grugy.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's a horse who's a nearly horse at the moment, but the Queen Mother, as we all know, is wide open this year.
And he's just sort of bridging the gap between, he's been a really good handicapper, and he's just moving into those graded races and shown he can compete.
Do you know what I find really surprising? When you watch him in his races of late, he's been really keen and really free. But looking at him here, he's just nicely in Andrew McNamara's hands and nice and relaxed. If he was like that in his races, he'd have a better chance of getting home and over a bit of a trip.
Well, Shark Handlin in the Racing Post this morning was talking about Hidden Cyclone. It's entered actually in the Ryanair at the festival. It's his only entry, and he said we're undecided whether he will go there. We're leaning towards sending him, as he's in great form. We'll school him at Leopardstown, which they're doing at the moment, and then make a decision during the week.
You know, he wouldn't be the worst runner in the world, you know, in the Ryanair. Because Beneficent, I think, goes there. He'd be one I'd be fairly keen on. Dynast is a horse who I've always liked. He hasn't delivered what he's promised, and I think if they ride him like the best horse in the race and produce him with one slick run, he's got a chance. But this horse would have to be thereabouts. Like, you know, if you fancy Beneficent, you've got to give this horse a little squeak.
And he has been to Cheltenham this season and ran well on good ground.
Blinder in the Paddy Power, wasn't it? Was it the Paddy Power?
Yeah, back in November, yeah. Now, this is our Conor, isn't it, with the big white face?
Yeah.
He was due to work with a couple of stablemates, but we've got 6 horses here at the moment.
Yeah,
so off they go. Our Conor is away for his circuit of the track. I'm saying Brian Cooper's in amongst that group as well, isn't he?
He is. He's in the brown breeches on right at the front of your picture. Don't know who else we have in amongst these. We've Roger Loughran is at the back in the all white with the blue cap. He was narrowly beaten earlier on one of Desi's. And Johnny King is an amateur who's based with Desi. I wonder if he's riding one of these as well. But I'm sure he won't have any shortage of riders who'll be volunteering their services, because you never know what it leads to. As I said earlier on, you know, I managed to pick up a Grade 1 winner for Willie on the back of riding in this piece of work, in some of this work. So, you know, you never know what happens.
What partnerships could be struck? Well, just while they head off on the far side, there was another email that had come in this afternoon, Mick, that it was from Graham, who said if you could ask Mick if he could ride one horse at the festival, which would it be and why?
At this year's festival?
Yeah.
Well, I think it would have to be Bobsworth. You know, I'm a huge fan of the horse, and I'd like to see how good he really is.
This is just Hidden Cyclone, just getting on top, isn't he, close home here at the end of his piece of work.
Yeah, well, they've just had a nice little tour around, and, you know, there's no point trying to put mad gallops into horses now. You'll probably do more harm than good. I think it's just an exercise to get their blood up and just get them to peak fitness.
And
yeah, I think Bobsworth, you know, he's the one I'd like to ride, because I'd really like to know how good he is. And
Ruby was saying in his interview this morning that the Leopardstown race when they won the Lexus over Christmas just gave an indication that he is a really good horse.
Yeah, I think he surprised quite a few people as to how much foot he really has. And, you know, it's not all that long ago when he ran in the Albert Bartlett, and, you know, and Nicky says himself, he says he bottled it. He said he should have ran him in the Neptune, but he thought, well, it looked a safer option to get a winner. And so it proved. Like, he absolutely dotted up in the Albert Bartlett. But here we go, we're watching our Conor, and he's just having a nice time. This is very similar to what they did last year, and as you heard from Desi Hughes earlier on, this is not going to be a jaw-dropping gallop. It's basically a case of finishing touches, let him have a nice time, because it's the same route they took last season, and we all know the performance he put up in the Triumph Hurdle.
And he was trained by Desi on the flat, rated 84 at the end of his flat career. In terms of his hurdles form, 4 wins and 2 places from 6 starts, and it all culminated to Mick with that stunning 15-length victory in the Triumph last year.
Yeah, it was. I watched it again, and they went a good gallop in the Triumph. He was always up in the van as well, and you know, when Brian Cooper took it up on him, you're thinking it'll be interesting to see what he's able to find. But the ones behind him were just toiling in his wake. It was almost like he was in his own. They were in a different race to him.
And he's had almost a sort of Mouse Morris prep for the festival this year. Every run's been about bringing him forward to peak on the big day.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And when you've got somebody like Desi Hughes training him, a man who's, you know, ridden champion hurdle winners, he's trained champion hurdle winners in Hardy Eustace, he's had a lot of success on the big days. He knows what it takes to get one to peak fitness. And, you know, you can just see here, you know, they're actually doing plenty, these horses, but you can just see as well, Brian Cooper, who's riding the lead horse, he's just having a little look for our Conor, because he doesn't want to leave him too much to do. So he's just making it nice and easy for him, and I would think the exercise will be to just let our Conor win his little bit of work, finish a head or a neck in front, hard on the bridle, and job done.
He's a lovely looking horse, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a nice type. He's by Jeremy, so he should be able to cope with decent ground. And that's job done. Perfect. You know, they've not... You don't know any more about our Conor than you did before today, but at least you've seen him in the flesh and he's had a nice time.
Well, one horse we've not seen in the flesh for quite some time, and we will see very shortly, is Champagne Fever. He's had plenty of entries, not made a lot of those, not been seen since Christmas, but we'll see Champagne Fever out on the track very soon. These are more of Desi Hughes' horses. We've seen 3 past the post, and there's the next batch of 3. Not quite sure what they are, but Willie Mullins' horses are just getting ready to come out onto the track as well.
Oh, I'd say that's Champagne Fever in front. And then we have Felix Younger in the yellow hats. And it looks like we've got Patrick in third.
And Ruby on board. Champagne
Ruby's
Fever
in front on Champagne Fever. Now it'd be just interesting to watch this and just see, because you're watching a master at work here, because you know, even though it's only a schooling session, it'll be important that this goes well, because you know, this horse hasn't had that many runs over fences, so every time he jumps an obstacle is part of the process of him learning his trade. So Ruby will be teaching him as he goes. He'll be keen on not having too many mistakes here.
And it's just fascinating to see him out over fences, given we've not seen him since Christmas when he made that mistake.
Yeah, but look at his ears, Martin. This horse is eyeing up that fence from 8, 9, 10 strides away, and that's the sign of a horse with, you know, he's plenty of brain power. He's also got plenty of ability, as we know. And just watch him here as he eyes up the fence again. Ears pricked, because, you know, what horses are doing, they're working out the stride pattern, and it's the jockey's job then to, you know, either press the button for him to go forward. You can just see Ruby's just asking him to just pick up, and that's what you want to, you know, he's measured that horse. You know, he's backing off enough so that you can give him a little squeeze that last stride to get him going forward into the bridle. If you get a horse that's running too much with you at a fence, very difficult to place them then. If you've got one like him who's just backing off there, see the way he backed off?
Yep.
That then means that you can get behind him a little bit and get him to go forward.
And one would imagine he'll have been doing plenty of schooling at Willie's Place in the intervening 2 months since we last saw him.
I would see, you can see Ruby here, he's asking him to go forward now, because the horse has learned his job after the first couple of fences. Ruby's thinking, right, come on now, let's get you just going a little bit faster. You can see now he's picked up the pace a little bit, and this horse is building in confidence as he goes. That was neat as you like.
And he's been immaculate so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He made a little mistake at the first, but after that, he's been good.
And they're now over coming out the
coming
far
down
side.
right down the far side, coming up to a ditch here. Again, ears pricked, just backing off, perfect.
And I'm sure many people who will have backed him or do fancy him will be reassured to see him out jumping fences in public.
Yeah.
Given we've not seen him for so long.
Yeah, no, but, you know, like all the other guys, there's nobody trying to put the other horse under pressure or trying to put him to the sword. You know, everybody's doing their own thing. This is not about putting horses on the floor or trying to look flash for the cameras. This is a case of another part of a horse's preparation.
And how much confidence can you give a horse through this sort of experience?
Well, it's all about confidence. Because if a horse has a negative experience here, how can you possibly go to Cheltenham full of confidence? Because you've just knocked him back. You know, and again here, this horse is finishing, ears pricked. Very neat. You know, and that, for me, is what you'll want to see.
Yeah, very encouraging. Felix Younger there in the yellow cap over in second place. And Champagne Fever then has done his circuit and did really well on the way around. Ruby Walsh on board as the next batch come out onto the track. 6 more fact, 8 more, 9, 10. These are Gordon Elliott's horses now out on the track at Leopardstown. In total, 12 coming out onto the track in this particular group. So while they head out onto the track, we'll take a short break. More, though, from Willie Mullins' yard to come out onto the track. Stay with us here as the gallops continue at Leopardstown.